So growing up, I knew drugs were a real thing. Steroids, to be more clear. I knew that it wasn't just something that existed on TV, that only professional athletes might be doing. I knew they were on my gym floor. Or not the drugs per se, but people who use them, who use steroids, were sharing the same space that I was sharing inside gyms that I go to. But here's the deal. In my day, when you were, I'm aging myself just by starting a sentence with such a phrase, but in my day, you knew better than to go ask someone with a questionable physique, and I don't mean questionable as in like, is it good or is it bad? It's a good physique, but you wonder, did they use some assistance to get there? You knew better than to ask these people if they were using steroids. And for sure, a big part of this has to do with the fact that they were illegal. Steroids were, still are, illegal. You go a little bit further back before my time, actually, they weren't quite illegal. But my time, they were illegal. So that was the first thing, right? I'm not going to be talking about that with someone you really don't know or know that well in the middle of a gym floor about illegal substances. But also, you knew you had to earn your stripes before they would even have that conversation with you. Like, you weren't invited in the grown folks dinner table just yet, and you had to be invited. You couldn't, ask if you could partake. Well, and usually that's how it goes. It's like, hey, these real serious bodybuilders, because I think there's a certain element of seriousness that should, and back then more often came with the fact that I am supplementing with these substances, or rather the guys that look like they were making good use out of these compounds. Like, they look the part, because there's a lot of dudes that be taking stuff do not look the part, but these dudes that really about that life, again, you knew, don't invite yourself in. They will invite you in should they see that you're doing something with yourself. So again, I just got to work. I just did my things. I showed up. I think I'm going to stay natty my whole life. I'm making good progress. So really, I don't see too much reason to even investigate that side. So as much as I was curious to talk to these dudes that, are most likely using some of the secret sauce, part of me was like, I'm just going to keep doing my thing over here because it seems to be working really well. So anyhow, I'm minding my own business, just making all sorts of progress. And I remember, if I remember correctly, Tuesday nights or Wednesday nights. Yeah, I forget, but I think the third day in my training cycle is always a deadlift day. And all of a sudden, it was just me and my training partner at the time, inconsistent training partner at the time. And but he would always show up to deadlift day. He was also happened to be put together to deadlift. And I am approached by a guy about my age, stocky build, a little bit on the tubbier side, but this dude he asked if he could work in with us. And actually, like, the energy was cool. Like, we really vibed off each other after that session. And after that, we kind of made it a point to, like, it's like, hey, let's make it work out so that we can at least deadlift together. And mind you, at this point, I am pushing like 220 pounds. I'm slowly getting up to like 230. And before I go off on another tangent, just know that, no, the reason I have the muscle I have was not because of this dreamer bulk. It was a very inefficient time in my life. I take it back on so many levels. But still, you get a dude that is like pretty well muscle. Like, here's the thing. It's like a lot of these 160, 170 pound like natural bodybuilders, that's what they are on stage. They would legit be like these subcompact, like 190 to 210 pound running backs if they had the talent to do that from a muscularity standpoint anyways. So I didn't look totally fat. muscle kind of contours body fat. So I look pretty well put together, and not just with a shirt, also without it. So anyhow, this dude is feeling me out. He's like, because, you know, we had just met each other, but over time we became not just friends, but really good friends. And he went from becoming my training partner on deadlift days to we literally just trained 80% of the time. And just to put it out there for a lot of you guys who have been following me for a long time, no, this is not Levi. It's my boy. Rest in peace. You know how it goes. You know how young 20-somethings do. They usually like train in these little entourages of like 2, 3, 4 people. So he was just part of that. But eventually, as time went on, and he was like, bro, you actually are Natty. That's when things started to get really good, because I got to learn a little bit about him and why, because he ended up like being one of my boys and, you know, most consistent training partners when it came to, because, you know, it goes with these cliques. It's like it might be 4 or 5 of us there training, but there's usually only like 2 or 3 of these folks that are making it in consistently, and then the other ones just kind of come in and out on most days. But this dude was consistent. But once it got to the point that he like believed me that I was 100% drug free, like that's what, I guess, me without knowing took our friendship to another level, because he was kind of 50-50 at first. He's like, is this guy really not using something, or at least not a little bit of something? But what I ended up finding out eventually was that once he realized, like, oh shoot, this dude's not playing, he's 100% drug free, he was like, I need to stick around, like kind of be his shadow, his apprentice, and figure out how he did this, how he's been making all this substantial progress, which again, like, I looked pretty good at the time, but it was mostly because I kept showing up. My systems and how I got there, in hindsight, so inefficient. So we made some great progress together. But I would find out years later that he had made more progress long ago, before we were friends. See, this dude had gone hard in the paint with steroids. And it was to the point where it kind of, it almost ruined his marriage. And she gave him an ultimatum. It's like either this stuff or I go. I mean, he made the right decision. Sauce can go, you can stay. And that's where I was such a, in hindsight, once I found out, I was such an important new addition to his life, because I showed him life after sauce, right? But the crazy part was, this dude not only used, he was like the main supplier to a lot of these dudes that I grew up like just watching and idolizing as a kid. So he was supplying all my gym heroes with the stuff, and I got to learn a lot about what took place behind the scenes. Again, just so I don't sound too ignorant, I don't know. I know what I know about this stuff, and I know that this man was legit, and things I don't know if they have changed or how they have changed when it comes to the black, gray, whatever market of anabolic steroids. But anyhow, it was like a cowboy time in his life, right? Like this, he took me to his room. He showed me like a lot of unopened and open stuff, and it was just like, dude, like yeah, I saved these because I guess part of him absolutely missed it, but also it was a important chapter in his life. And I think the reason I share this with you guys today is because as a young man, like, this could have gone wrong for me in so many ways. Like, I totally could have seen myself going up to these dudes, and most of them, I think, were good in their intentions and good, solid people. I found out later for sure they were, and they probably would have smacked me, and I would have been like carried out of the gym in a shovel. But I also know there would have been a few guys out there that a little predatory. That's how it goes with any black market, gray market, whatever you want to call it. I think anytime you involve drugs in human beings, things can get a little fucking weird, right? However, the biggest thing I learned, and in hindsight, I'm glad that I didn't use, because had I gone to one of those guys, it wouldn't have been like, bro, just get back to the weight room, get back to your little set of curls now. There is a good chance I would have eventually ran into someone that would have been like, yeah, I'll sell you some shit. And bro, this stuff reminded me of like exactly like how you serve up knocks, right? Like weed, for example. Like, you know, the people who just lower tier on the hierarchy list, you give them your Bammer weed, and then you save your chronic, your good stuff, for your high profile buyers. So in hindsight, man, I could have gotten some questionable stuff from these guys who, you know, they got some stuff they're sitting on, you know, they don't know, because it happens like that, man, with these markets. They're not too sure as to whether or not this stuff is what it says it is. It's certainly not up to standard. And that's how it goes with that stuff, man. It's like if you sell the premium stuff to someone who's got like the potential, because over time that's going to bring you back more revenue. And then what usually ends up happening is like the Bammer weed of steroids, that stuff is distributed to the lower tier folks, which for the most part, when you are 16, 17, 18, 19, that's what you are. And sounds wrong, but quite often, like, the people who are willing to sell to you are absolutely willing to give you like that questionable stuff. Anyhow, I learned so much. Like, every once in a while I'd have a question, like whether it was about this person or if like this dynamic that I was watching here, did it have something to do with, you know, the drug cultures that were inside the gyms. Interesting stuff. So yeah, that is the the time that I found out that one of my many training partners was not just like in a previous, and it would have not mattered. Some of our guys were like not Natty, and we trained with him, but was using steroids in abundant amounts before I knew him. But most importantly, like, he was the dude, like, serving up all these people. Little did I know. So crazy, right? Because there I was training, telling when the question would come up if I use anything, I'm like, nah. And right alongside me, like, is this dude who sold stuff to maybe them or their friend. I could only imagine what the chit chatter was like behind closed doors. Nevertheless, I learned a lot, and not only did I learn a lot about what was happening in my immediate community, gym community anyways, but I learned a lot about how stuff works through this guy when it comes to the drug pipeline. So yeah, that's just what happens, man. You train long enough at any gym, especially a bodybuilder centrist gym, oh, you got some stories to tell by the end of it. All right, we're here. No more campfire talk. For those of you guys who come here because you bought the training, that's it. Let's get it. 265 for a single. And I think that 265 could have gone for 2 reps. Eric thinks 3, because my single's supposed to be RPE 8, so 2 in the tank. Eric said he was here, that 2 in the tank. I just don't feel very confident with singles yet, but for sure I had one more. Nevertheless, my 225 for 20 goal that I have by November, December, so some point this year, in order for me to give myself a chance to get there, my base strength needs to move up. And I think sometimes this is something that bodybuilders underappreciate, is just strength. Because that's for powerlifters, that's for other, I guess, iron warriors. But think about that for a minute. If your top in strength moved up, how is that going to positively impact the more, I guess you could say, typical rep ranges that most bodybuilders use? So yeah, I need to move up my strength ceiling a little bit. This was my full ROM 8 to 12 rep failure set on my iliac pull down. I ended up getting 13. Surprised me because I'm trying to switch over my training into the morning. I thought my strength endurance would be shot. So honestly, this set messed me up because for me, it gets to the point where, and this happens once you have achieved a certain level of strength, where heavy and high rep just messes you up. So it messed up all my upsets, all my sets that I load heavier after my full ROM failure on my pulls. Like that one just tore me up. Like what I should have done is on that full ROM failure set is have a little faith in my trends and that I was going to exceed the 12 rep cap and it just upped the load, but I just didn't think I had it in me. So I guess I'm making a very efficient turnaround when it comes to training earlier in the day. Very surprising. This was my, again, same thing, my set that just, I mean, it's stimulus for sure, but more than anything, between this like very arbitrary range of motion, controlled range of motion, it helps me track progress. So this was like 240 on the pull down, I think for like 8-9 reps, something like that. That was surprising. So yeah, I'm trying to train earlier in the day. I'm not a morning person, but this would benefit me and yeah, the family, my athletes, everyone who counts on me in a positive way. So we're trying to get to that point. It feels weird, man. Like no amount of caffeine is going to fix this. It's just going to be a time thing. This was my upset. I thought if I put a 25-pound plate in my backpack and use that to help me sit down into place, that would make that part easier. But if anything, once I started feeling the pressure on my shoulders, I'm like, man, this is going to help me on reps. So it's going to be like one of those slingshot apparatuses, but before pulling, right? And the most, I guess, hypertrophic part of the rep is going to get assistance. So I took it off, but I had been like dying all week to try that to see if it would help. 300 pounds, I think, for like what is almost some full ROM reps, and then these partials. And again, cambered bar bench pressing, I absolutely love it. I think because I have no history really with this lift, to the point where it's a barbell, it's a funny barbell, right? Bent little barbell, but anything that I do like shortly here is going to be a PR. And only 2 sets of this because this is mostly a lat centric day, but hopefully work on this, because talk about length and pecs really helps build up the engine size so that I can produce more when I'm working on my top end strength. And then of course, where strength and strength endurance meet, that's what's going to happen when I get to my 225 for however many reps I end up getting. Anything after like 12 is just going to be, I know what that 225 for 20 is going to feel like. After 12, like your mind's going to want to quit, and you're just going to have to take it 1 rep at a time, basically. Same thing here. Like this is, again, my barely that a full ROM work into partials on that on my lat bias row. That was my last set, so that's why I looked like garbage, because I had beat up like the crap out of the lats, not just with those 2 exercises, but on this specific machine just moments earlier. Daisy chain triceps. This is really the only direct tricep work I'm doing right now. Something to consider, something to think about. But yeah, training is going well. Again, I have these very concrete goals, and yeah, with the 225 for 20. So if you take anything from this, I'd say it's important that you have very like concrete, very explicit goals that you, like sometimes with the physique building, it just takes so long beyond year 3 or 4 to see anything manifest into something, that having these clear objectives and things to pursue with your training, like is going to help you pass the time while you wait for this new tissue to accrue. So that's what we're doing. We're making the waiting room a little more entertaining, but also in a non-direct but direct way. It's going to help my bodybuilding out. All right, y'all, this is all I have for you guys this week. Not much to report, but things are moving and I'm enjoying my training. It's just training in the morning that kind of sucks, but you'll see. I think 4 weeks from now, I'll be like, yeah, so glad I made that move. Empty gyms has been the biggest perk so far. But yeah, that is it. I'll see y'all next week.